Hey, so this build ended up being a pretty insane project of mine, and I think I had a lot of fun just like absolutely min-maxing the damage on this thing. Now, I'm gonna preface this build by saying that it is not meant to be a tank. It is meant to play around this off-core mentality where if I die, it's fine because I stay so much more time just, like one-shotting everything. Now, that being said, it does have some good defensive layers, and so I'll go over some of these as well as like how to kind of put the build together. But yeah, Frostblink is an interesting skill to use with cast on crit. It kind of turns the build into a pseudo flicker strike, except it feels a little bit better because flicker strike sometimes you just end up going wherever. Frostblink kind of follows your cursor a little bit better, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of hard to control. So some bosses will always be like kind of rippy. Primarily, Uber Elder and Maven are relatively rippy bosses on this build because, like with Maven, you just end up like dashing into the degen, which is fine. You can just kind of like chill and wait. But if she decides to throw a cast at you and you don't have any way of like moving out, then you're just kind of screwed. Meanwhile, Uber Elder is just some of the stuff is just very lethal and like when you're dashing around, you can dash into like degen or like shaper beam. This build doesn't have enough life recovery in order to mitigate that, so you'll probably end up dying. But besides that, any boss that you can like instant phase or anything like that is just trivial with this build. I want to say the damage with the entire setup is probably 240 or something. I need to double check again, but it's like 240 to 250 mil, which is plenty for literally all content and then some. But yeah, the entirety of this build is using Cyclone to, crit in order to cast Frostblink. And how we're getting a lot of casts off, so my effective trigger rate's like at 14.49 or something. And this is in part by using Mage Blood as well as using a Badge of the Brotherhood. And so there's a lot of ways for this build to just like passively get attacks. Like I have 14.08 attacks per second. So yeah, you can get crit capped by using like a diamond flask or whatever, but I mean, you're basically crit capped with a with the Bottle of Faith proc, and even if you don't have Bottle of Faith, it's like 99%. It's a negligible amount that you can run like a defensive flask instead. So yeah, the big thing with bossing is your setup. If you want a lingering chill effect, which is how this build skills damage, you can see the quality for Frostblink of Wintry Blast is 4% more damage with hits per 5% chill effect on enemy. So this is a lot of more damage multiplier if you have chill on the enemy. Now this ability itself cannot chill even with Shaper Winter. However, Cyclone can chill if it does cold damage, which ours does. And also our Ascendancy gives us chill through Occultist, and this Frostblink setup with Unbound Ailments and Bone Chill also works. And so you'll see me a lot of the times will throw Curse Ground down with Frostbite, I will Frostblink, and then if I have a cheese the Bottled Faith, I'll pop that, and I will just spin off that, and it does a lot of damage. Obviously, you don't need to go this hard for it. You can literally like play without a curse, second curse, and you'll also do enough damage to one-shot most Ubers. So yeah, the build has so much damage. But yeah. So let me go over the actual like items for this build and kind of explain how expensive they are and whatnot. For the weapon, this is actually really easy to craft, really cheap. You can definitely get better, specifically a rune dagger, where instead of the hybrid fizz, you just get a +1 fizz, or +1 cold gems or spell gems, which obviously is like that's like a mirror level craft at that point, and you'd want to be going for like a mirror base, or just mirror the dagger. But otherwise, you want a fractured global crit multi or a global crit increased crit chance, and either one of these at tier 1 is fine fractured. They're less than a div, and you can just spam essences of zeal. And once you hit T1 of the other crit mod, either multi or crit chance, you'll lock suffixes and you'll throw a Veiled Chaos Orb on it. If you don't fill your prefixes, which you normally shouldn't, you're solid, you block percent fizz, and you unveil either spell damage or cold damage, and that's it. That is the entire craft. Then you throw on hits can't be evaded and call it a day. Yeah, there's really like not much to it. It's a really cheap craft for like what the power of this item is. So that's not ever an issue that's going to keep you from doing this build. A +1 max power charge will clash is really powerful. Obviously, any amount of power charges is going to be a huge bonus to our damage. We're scaling power charges, so this is giving us increased elemental damage per power charge, which isn't really the big thing. It is giving us 5% chance to block spell damage per power charge, so that equates to 60% spell block from this one item, which is very powerful. And on top of that, it gives us some ES. But a maximum power charge one is currently 10 divines. And if you mark up the elemental, it goes to 11 divines. And yeah, you can obviously get some other cool mods like Reservation, but that's not really necessary. We're also using Malachi's Loop, abusing the power charge mechanics. This is giving us a crap ton of power charges. So 2 power charges, max power charges from like any item is already insane, but then we're also getting 16% increased spell damage per power charge. So this is giving us well over 100% like spell power, which is a lot of damage. This lose all power charges upon reaching max power charges is negligible, and this is primarily due to using Ralakesh's Impatience. And this just means we have maximum power charges, frenzy charges, and endurance charges all the time, which provides us with, well, a lot of damage and a little bit of defense from the endurance. One thing to note, you are going to get shocked every time you hit max power charges, and the way you can mitigate this is by playing the cannot be shocked while in max power charges. Since we're always at max power charges, we cannot be shocked. If you're really scared of ignites, you could go that, but then just bear in mind you'll have to find shock avoidance somewhere else, or just eat the 27%, 37% shock that you're always going to have on you, which is not very advised, to be honest. Now, Badge of the Brotherhood is the best amulet for this build, and it is kind of not replaceable. You want another implicit if you don't need dex. But besides that, like, you can get attack speed, which is going to be really helpful for this build, because CDR for Frostblink is not an issue. We have 9% increased CDR for travel skills per frenzy charge. This is giving us a lot of cooldown recovery, because our maximum frenzy charges is equal to our maximum power charges. And so we have 12 frenzy charges. 12 times 9 is 108, and you're getting another 32% from Awakened CoC, and so 34%, and so like it's an insane amount of CDR to the point where you're more capped by your attack speed. But yeah, any anointment that works. Charisma just allows us to have enough mana, and I'll go over some of the mana issues as well. Obviously, just playing Cyclone, a lot of like spell scaling, power charge on crit. Quality does not matter. It's literally just the more damage per power charge. We get 48% more damage from this. Inspiration is always very good because we're just doing a lot of elemental damage, and we also want some crit. And obviously, this is what makes a build function. So the thing with Inspiration, right, is you want to have maximum stacks, but you want to have those stacks fall off as slow as possible. So I've kind of min-maxed the Frostblink to have 0 mana cost. And instead, I have Cyclone with 1 mana cost, meaning I have to spin for so long for these charges to drop. I'm going to basically be capped at 5 charges. And it takes me literally less than, like, a quarter of a second to get to 5 charges with Cyclone. So, yeah, Inspiration is, like, I've min-maxed that decently. Now, Bronze Life, you want this because it gives +5 level to movement gems, which, you know, Frostblink is. And it gives you 61% to 100% increased damage with movement skills, which Frostblink is. And this is a massive damage upgrade from any other chest. You don't want to run anything else here. The +1 gems or +2 AoE gems is also a nice bonus, just like any other spell build. Be advised, don't get baited by +2 duration gems. I saw a couple of those listed for higher, and those are probably for a different build, because Frostblink itself is a duration gem, but this alternate quality one is not a duration gem. So just please keep that in mind, because those are like 15, 20 div. As far as gloves go, this incursion mod with increased damage against chilled enemies is huge because we're playing around chill. And because I have Doriani's Lesson, I'm always leeching, so that's the craft we want. Besides that, attack speed on these is another thing you want to get. I'm playing Mageblood right now. I tried the build with Headhunter, and honestly, it feels pretty good, but it's like... It's a lot better defensively, in my opinion, with Mageblood, because Flask Uptime is not something you can get while running Headhunter. And while I love Progenesis, it's just not enough uptime to be consistent in maps, so like dying once or twice in maps is pretty common with Headhunter if you don't have enough buffs ramped up. Now, we're using a Calandra's Touch because we have a +1 max power charge ring. This ring currently is going for... There's some listed for like 380 divines. I'd say around the 400 divine range is more realistic for one of these rings. The way you craft these is you just buy the base with +1 max power charges, and you spam these Scorn Essences until you hit some usable suffixes. Then you lock suffix, and you're going to Veiled Chaos Orb these and fish for life. Alternatively, you can also fish for reduced mana cost if mana is an issue, but if you're running Mageblood, mana is not an issue because we're using reduced mana cost Flask. So, yeah, one of these rings provides 2 power charges, which is a lot of damage. As we've gone over, there's a lot of stuff that scales our power charge damage. But even if you don't have one of these rings, you can run like damage per power charge, spell damage per power charge, or you can run global crit multi, which is going to be a lot cheaper than this. So you don't actually need it. This build has plenty of damage even without it. But just another thing to keep in mind, that it is relatively expensive. We're using a Dominus one. Obviously, Inner Conviction is just 3% more spell damage per power charge, so 36% more. And this gain power charges instead of frenzy charges is just a negligible mod. So you want to be sure when you buy one of these that it's not taking away instability or any of these like notables. You don't want it to replace them, because some of the times it will give you like a Legion mod in place of one of these notables, which is not what you want. You want every single notable point here. Okay. Besides that, we have Blood Notch Immutable Force. And so this is kind of a debatable option. The only reason why I'm running this is because I still like the little bit of survivability that we get from it. Having ES means you won't take a stunning hit. You have a much lower chance to take a stunning hit. I want to say it's close to 50% stun avoidance when you have ES. However, we drain ES pretty quickly when we get into maps and like touch any form of degen or get hit. This ES recharge is also going to be interrupted by any hit, and we're not running that much evasion. So we're going to be like 0 ES most of the time, which means our life pool of 1.5k is going to be exposed, and we're going to be able to get stunned a lot. And that obviously helps with the Blood Notch Immutable Force. On top of that, I am also running Petrified Blood, which ups our tankiness when we're at low life. And of course, that also opens up the ability to run Pain Attunement. As far as other unique gems go, there is That Which Was Taken. This is a place where you can get Coin Strike, LE Reflect. I'm looking for phasing here because I was using this for mapping. AoE per power charge is really nice. And you can also get like crit multi per power charge, which is a lot more expensive. I'm getting those from these charms instead. Then obviously I also have Unaffected by Bleeding While Leeching, just for that extra tankiness in maps. Now, you need the Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh for Shaper of Winter so that you're always chilling. These are not crazy expensive compared to other ones, so very affordable. Next, we want to fill reses or attributes from these cluster jewels. I would highly recommend reses, but if you are desperately starved for attributes, then you can also do that. Keep in mind you do have like a ring slot and a glove slot to fill attributes, as well as a belt, Mage Blood, which gives you dex and strength, which is what you're starved for, and a Badge of the Brotherhood, which can have dexterity if you absolutely need it. Otherwise, it's just stereotypical like cast on crit clusters. These are nothing special. For the Watcher's Eye, I just went for straight damage. You can obviously run something a bit more tanky here, like if you're running D-Term, which I am, you could run something that buffs that, but I mean, this build is literally cheese for damage. One thing to note, Spiteful Presence is a very powerful notable from the small cluster reservation notes. It's going to give us a lot of cold chill effect. And this is something we're scaling a lot of. I'm basically chilling enemies for 37 to 40% consistently, which is giving us a lot of damage. But yeah, that is something of note, and obviously this helps with reservation. Having a little bit of open mana is also always good, but I was taking this when I really needed mana, and I was having issues with capping the inspiration min-maxing. But yeah, you can also flex over to the marked enemies part here for even more damage, but I don't have the points right now since I'm not level 100, and I don't really plan to get this character there. However, yeah, you don't need that. Like, your Cursed Ground Frostbite gives you a lot of single target already, and obviously you're still doing mark on hit with Assassin's Mark. Yeah, I'm running Arrogance for Herald of Ice and the Vitality, so I can have a little bit of regen. My overall regen right now is like 256, so it's really nothing, but it's a decent chunk of my HP. But yeah, there's not much else to it. Like, you want to do Made Bludge tech. Getting attack speed on Flask is really useful, and some armor just gives us 90% PDR. But at the end of the day, you know, like, there's a lot of flexibility with this part. It's just more of these items. You cannot, like, sub out these 4 items. Honestly, these 5 items for this build specifically. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, one-shotting bosses is a great time. Like, I was farming Maven for a while. This build can actually do 100% dealing maps with no sweat at all. Like, you'll die occasionally if you roll really bad mods and take a bunch of bad altars. But, like, if you don't do that and you're just, like, chilling, you can go into the Wildwood and, like, do 100% deli, because you just literally one-shot everything. The downside of the build comes in, like, the actual lack of control, which is a lot like Flicker Strike. So, it is what it is. I like this more than Flicker Strike. It's a lot more fun, and the damage scaling is actually a lot better, in my opinion. And on top of that, Queer is way better. You don't need melee splash. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this little video guide. Until next time, ciao.